Mark Cuban got himself in hot water over the week with comments that he made regarding the Sterling situation. And remember, Cuban initially, the day the story broke, Cuban, who was always a go-to owner for reporters for a soundbite, right? Nobody's calling Ted Leonsis of the Wizards and putting it on the front page of ESPN.com, or 25 other owners, right?
Right.
So Cuban gets a call and is asked to comment on the Sterling situation, and he uses the phrase slippery slope, suggesting partly what I'd said a moment ago, that this is a private conversation that somebody had in their home, and is a private conversation that somebody had in their home, no matter how hideous, the kind of thing where we determine it's okay to strip their franchise. It certainly wasn't a popular thing to say at the time, and it may have been an unwise thing to say at the time, and it may reflect some ignorance about the seriousness of what Sterling did. All those things may be true. On its face, it's a valid argument for somebody to make. Bill Maher made essentially the same argument on his show. There's a counter argument to it, that you're part of this group, and the group, that all that stuff is, but it was a worthy thing to bring up, but it got him in hot water. The next day, when Sterling was suspended, was banned from the league and fined $2.5 million, Cuban was adamant, saying, yay, I'm behind it 100%.
Yeah.
Then this week he starts hedging a little bit, and he says, I'm not going to tell you how I'm going to vote. I've decided how I'm going to vote. He turns it into a little game show, a little reality competition, find out how Mark Cuban's going to vote. I think he would have voted to ban Sterling. I don't think he's that dumb. But, and then he said comments about everybody's prejudices. If I see a black kid in a hoodie and it's late at night, I'm walking to the other side of the street. And if on that side of the street, there's a guy that has tattoos all over his face, white guy, bald head, tattoos everywhere, I'm walking back to the other side of the street. I know I'm not perfect. While we all have our prejudices and bigotries, we have to learn that it's an issue we have to control. That's part of my responsibility as an entrepreneur, to try to solve it, not just kick the problem down the road, presumably a different road than the road he was on when he kept crossing the street, because there were menacing guys walking toward him. So I think, first of all, in Mark Cuban's defense, I think it's very important that we read that the last part of that quote is included, because not everywhere that I've seen the story do they include the part where he says, while we all have our prejudice and bigotries, we have to learn that's an issue we have to control. That's something that's frequently not said when somebody issues that, pointing out that, yeah, we have it. And then what I would say, too, is that you have to realize, if I'm afraid of a black kid coming toward me, there's probably no reason for that. And the color of somebody's skin doesn't make them inherently evil. And you have to recognize that in yourself and what that means about yourself. So that's interesting. I think, Steve, what Cuban said here that is definitely wrong is part of what black people have dealt with for forever. He gives two scenarios of a threatening person walking toward him. The second threatening scenario was white guy, bald head, tattoos everywhere. The first scenario was black.
Well, black and a hoodie. Black
and a hoodie, but I mean, like, black guy in a sweatshirt. The other guy had to have something, and what he's getting at, of course, is like Aryan Nation, tatted up guy, bald head. Bald head tattoos means Aryan Nation. But that kid it wasn't a white guy in a hoodie. It was a white guy with other demarcations.
I never got this whole hoodie thing. Are people who wear hoodies dangerous? I mean, do gang members wear hoodies? Like, why did a hoodie become all of a sudden the symbol for it's okay to be afraid of someone in a hoodie?
Because of the fucking...
I never got that.
The fucking Unabomber. Like, a white guy.
Is that what it was?
I don't know.
I don't know.
But like when I think of like criminals in hoodies, that's what I think of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I never got that. Look, so Mark Cuban's point is fine, and I don't quite understand what all the controversy was, other than the part about the hoodie, because that is so directly goes to Trayvon Martin's issue. But other than that, I mean, his point about we all have prejudices, but that's a bit of a cop-out. Yeah, we all have prejudices. We all take shits, right? But if we take a shit in the middle of the road or on someone else's property, you can call people out on it and say, hey, that's not cool. So the problem, I think, is that the word racism is an issue, because it spans a huge gulf from, someone who can't tell the difference between Will Smith and Robert Horry, all the way over to, a person who wants to lynch black people. I mean, everyone's a racist, right?
Right.
And it's too much.
And there's a difference between a phrase that I try to use when we do shows on the Young Turks, that someone unnecessarily injects race into an issue. That's different than being a racist.
Yeah.
Like, be careful, you're unnecessarily injecting race into an issue, which makes it combative and makes you seem kind of ignorant. But I'm not saying that you're a racist,
Right.
like, you know. So, and that's what, and I think, but that second part of what Cuban said, that you have to check yourself on it, that's good. That's actually a good part. That's actually a good thing to say. So I don't think it's all bad, what he said. And, but the first part I think is significant, that you just remind yourself that black kid, first of all, forget the insensitivity toward Trayvon Martin's family. He apologized for it. We'll get to that in a moment. But again, black kid just has to wear a sweatshirt. White people have to have something different. And that's something that Mark Cuban, I hope, after, if you believe the second part of what he wrote, would read the first part and think, oh yeah, I'm applying a completely different standard based on race. Anyway, because of the Trayvon Martin thing, of which saying a black kid in a hoodie, 98% of America thinks of one thing, and that's George Zimmerman murdering Trayvon Martin. Cuban recognized that the day after and issued apologies to Martin's family through a string of tweets. Here's what Cuban said. In hindsight, I should have used different examples. I didn't consider the Trayvon Martin family. I apologized to them for that. Beyond apologizing to the Martin family, I stand by the words and substance of the interview. I think that helping people improve their lives, helping people engage with people they may fear or may not understand, and helping people realize that while we all may have our prejudices and bigotries, we have to learn that it's an issue we have to control, and that's part of my responsibility as an entrepreneur to try to solve it, echoing what he said in the first place. You know, I like part of that apology. I like that he stands by it, because again, I read the story the first time, and I'm afraid that the way we covered it too on the Young Turks yesterday, we didn't include that back part.
Yeah.
That back part is
it's critical.
Critical to understand, and it gives him a big pass on the overall gist of it. Again, I'll stand by what I said before. You can't hold black people and white people to a different standard based on the color of their skin, and a guy with a swastika tattooed on his face is a threat, and a black kid in a hoodie wearing gang colors might be a threat, and that's okay. But that's a second characteristic that would tell people that you're facing a threat, not just being black.
I have such a different experience. I was a volunteer at the Public Defender's Office in D.C., and I went to the worst parts of D.C., in southeast D.C., and I never, ever was afraid of any black person that I saw, whether they're in a hoodie or not. I don't know of any instance of anyone that I know personally who was attacked by a black person on the streets. So this whole idea of crossing the street to avoid them seems absurd to me.
Yeah, it's a strange example to use. And I mean, look, as I said, I agree with you. There are things that make people afraid, and that doesn't make that person necessarily bad. As Mark Cuban said, you should check yourself as to why. And again, first of all, if you're, like I said, I don't mind people who might think, I saw two guys wearing with Crips colors walking to me, and one of them had a gun. Across the fucking street, But again, apply the same standard. But I like what Cuban said, and I think I don't think he's really in significant hot water here.
Yeah,
I think the whole quote gives it some perspective. And
what he said was fine.
And it's nice that he apologized to Trayvon Martin's family. He should. You shouldn't use the black. We all know what black kid in a hoodie means right now, and that was a not insignificant mistake.